and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Budget 2026 puts the challenge of Malaysia's productivity growth front and centre, with a focus on raising productivity through innovation, digital transformation and workforce upskilling. But productivity ultimately depends on people, the skills, the capability, the opportunities that shape the workforce of the future. So is Malaysia building the right kind of human capital? Not just producing more graduates, but also developing the talent that can truly raise productivity and competitiveness. Well, joining me to discuss this further is Ibrahim Sani, CEO of Yayasan Peneraju, which is an agency under the Economy Ministry tasked to grow Bumiputra talent. Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. So let's talk about Budget 2026, because under what was tabled, we had 6 billion ringgit allocated to Yayasan Peneraju and MARA and UiTM to strengthen Bumiputra education development initiatives. So talk to me a little bit about that. Where is that money going to go?
This actually goes back 2 years ago when we did the Putra 35 blueprint regarding the transformation of the Bumiputra economy. And within it, the component where we talk about the talent development and human capital development is specifically tasked at trying to grow what we call value creators and not just value contributors to the economy. And how we define value contributors is that they actually can be economic multipliers. They can actually present some sort of value towards their communities that they are working with or building and living with, i.e. through, say, for instance, social enterprise or through their community and NGO work. Or another way of being a value creator is being professional certificate holders, say for instance a chartered accountant or a chartered financial analyst and so on, and then they too become to leave their employment and become capital owners themselves and start their own firms. So this is what I was thinking, what was done behind the scenes when we were developing Putra 35. And then when we saw Putra 35 being announced late last year and executed earlier this year, then we did what we call the remapping of the agency that is being executing this kind of work, or the agencies that will execute the kind of work that is contained within the blueprint. There we saw a few overlaps. Say for instance for TVET, there's a few overlaps in terms of agencies that is going to execute the programs for TVET. And then when we talk about the programs for upskilling and enhancing next generation technology training and certifications like AI training, data analyst and cybersecurity, not many agencies are doing that. So following this exercise where we were remapping who does what, it's clear after about the first or second quarter of this year that, say for instance, MARA would do a lot of TVET and a lot of upskilling for that particular sector. UiTM will focus on bachelor's and postgraduate degrees and on research. And then for Yayasan Peneraju, we would have a clear mandate on 2 areas, which is on professional certifications such as accounting as well as CFA. Another area on technology such as semiconductor, AI training and the such. So this is where the money is going to go to, and who is going to execute the kind of training that is coming in from the budget, say for instance 6 billion ringgit as pronounced by the Prime Minister.
Okay, well, so let's focus on Yayasan Peneraju's mandate. So you talked about more professional accreditation, right? Accounting and tech. These are high-skilled sectors. When you think about what to prioritize in terms of readying a future workforce, how do you tailor it to those specific areas? How do you make sure that Yayasan Peneraju is actually responsive? Because as we know, industry's needs evolve far more quickly than maybe government can respond to.
That's right. So you hit the nail on the head on that one, Mel, because while we are trying to build a long-term, lifelong program for society and for the community, industry needs are actually quite fast when it comes to trying to see what they need from the workforce. And then if you want to become an entrepreneur or a business owner yourself, you too need that kind of speediness and nimbleness in terms of trying to get the right talent to execute your own businesses. So from this, we have to think about it in two separate ways because the discussions are actually quite unique in each separate unit. For professionals, it's actually quite clear cut. We just need to look at the professional certifications per capita vis-a-vis Malaysia against all the other countries. Say, for instance, in Malaysia, we have 1,300 CFA charter holders against a backdrop of 35 million people. For Singapore, they have 25,000 CFA charter holders against a population of about 5 or 6 million. Hong Kong, it's even greater. They have about 50,000 CFA charter holders against a population of about 6 million. So, you can take out your calculator and divide. What I'm trying to say is, if we want to be competitive in the space of service industry, specifically in the financial service industry, clearly we are nowhere near the talent capacity of that of Hong Kong and Singapore. Now, that is just for the CFA space. The same thing can be said about accounting, where this year we are still trying our best to grow our number to the set target of 60,000 chartered accountants or registered members with the Malaysian Institute of Accountants, but we're still struggling in the sense of 38,000, 39,000 range for the past few years now. So in that space, I mean, I can go on, with PMP, with a certified internal auditor. I mean, the list goes on. Whatever it is, all the other developing countries have a far higher, greater rate of people holding a professional status vis-a-vis their own population, resulting in per capita charter holder status for various industries within the professional systems is greater than Malaysia.
Right.
So until and unless we hit that, we can't even imagine or put ourselves in the same league as them, because we're not. Okay, that's number one.
Right. So if I just could interrupt you very quickly, what are the barriers that allow for this discrepancy, or what barriers persist for particularly young Malays from growing professionally in this way?
Okay, then we slice and dice the number of we call it 4 clusters, Malay, Chinese, Indian, others. Unfortunately, it is what it is. We have to live with the system that we work with. For Chinese per capita, they are matching that of Hong Kong and Singapore. So I see some cultural similarities there. And, there would be a lot of stories or heritage in terms of why they feel that having such a certification is actually quite important for them to mobilize their economic, station in life, right? For Indians, others, and Malays, it's still far behind. So if you slice and dice it even further, we are so far behind when it comes to trying to achieve those numbers. However, to answer your question more directly, what is hindering us? It's actually nothing. It's just time. We need time and consistent, deliberate push every year to continue to grow the numbers, because we started off with 0 accountants of Malays in 1960. So we had Tun Hanif Arshad and Aisyah Ayub and all these luminaries. They were the first accountants, first Malay accountants, first Bumi Putra accountants. They only started in the 1960s. And Kuala Lumpur and Ipoh and Penang, they all had accountants, mostly from mainland China when they came over. So what I'm trying to say is, nothing is stopping us. We just need to not lose focus in terms of building our capacity. Now, the turning point is actually next year, 2026, where it was presented in the budget, and in the notes, it was mentioned also by the PMX, that 2026, for the first time in our history, will see newly enrolled accountants from Bumi Putra to supersede non-Bumi Putra for the first time. Now, this is no history, So what does that mean? Now, it took us, 60, 70 years to make the threshold overlap. Now, against a denominator of 30% non-Bumi versus a 70% Bumi, even with a lot of Bumi Putra citizens, about 70% of us are Bumi Putras, it took us all these years to cross that number of new enrollment of members to MIA. So we're off to a good start. We just need more time and deliberate push. And this is why Yayasan Peneraju, specifically for the professional space, is definitely not losing focus and trying to grow our numbers even more aggressively. That's why under the leadership of Datuk Sri Hamid Amzah, under the MOF slash Kementerian Economy or Minister of Economy, he is continuing the push that was set by the previous minister to actually grow the number of professional chartered status of Bumiputras at an aggressive rate. And that is why, with this finding, we have a clear focus and we have a clear determination to execute that. That is for the professional.
Right. So that you also mentioned the tech sector. So you want to grow the tech skills. Talk to me a little bit about that.
And so you have two spaces here. One we call branded, another one is unbranded. Branded is, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, AWS, cloud computing, ITIL. Those are brands that the industry recognizes and the industry appreciates. And the industry already has a standardization in terms of the kind of quality that you have if you have that kind of certifications and the kind of difficulty or the kind of advanced or amateurship, the level that a particular certification carries. That in itself, Bumiputras are not enough. Not enough. Okay, tu satu. Another one is what we call unbranded certifications. And this is no amount of certification has been created to assist the trainings for this kind of skill set that is required for next generation technology, such as from engineering, agentic AI, cloud AI. These kind of trainings are still in iteration, even with the branded team like Microsoft and Google and all that. They're still working it out. Even for OpenAI, they're still working it out. DeepSeek from China is still working it out. However, we need today over 60,000 advanced level prompt engineers. We have roughly about 1,000. So we have 59,000 behind. This is the level of highest proficiency. The lowest amount of proficiency, based on the data coming from Talent Corp as well as the National AI Office, we need about 500,000 people to be what we call AI aware. All right. We don't have that number. We have about 50,000 to 100,000 rough estimates. So we need to grow or cross over people who are from AI unaware to AI aware at 400,000 packs as soon as possible. I mean, no date has been set, but this is the criticality of the situation right now. Now, how can I teach you, prompt engineering and all that, even if you're from, when you're not even from AI unaware to AI aware? Hence the creation of the AI training blueprint that was endorsed by Med4IR by the Prime Minister himself and was presented to both ministers of the Human Resources as well as the Ministry of Digital, and they have endorsed it in terms of what the blueprint looks like. And now it is at the agency Penyelaras, or the executing agency, which is me, Yayasan Peneraju, to go and execute the training, not just the certification, but the training specifically for AI to grow that number at least, or to bring that gap even smaller. I may not be able to get 400,000 people to be AI unaware to AI aware in just a year, but even if I get 10% of that, that's good enough.
Is that your KPI? I'm just wondering, because again, beyond the numbers, right? How do you ensure that actually you're measuring quality? These skills that are being developed actually translate into productivity gains for the workplace, for the country?
So you think about it, in the 1960s and 1970s, the Malaysian government took a bet by using JPA and sending our parents to international universities with the hope that they return, number one, and with the hope that they get good jobs, and with the hope that they can boost the economy. Now, there was no set KPI when they sent, say, for instance, my mother or my father-in-law to University of Strathclyde, University of Adelaide. There was never a clear instruction or a clear demand that they come back and reach these kind of numbers. But the punt was that when they come back, they bring skill sets from a graduate from Strathclyde, from Oxford, from Harvard, from Adelaide, from Queensland, and so on. And they did. And over the next 30 to 40 years, we saw a cadre of proficient, inspirational Bumiputra managers and chief secretaries and the like to actually lead the professional space of the workforce. Today, at M40 or even at the T20, many of those that belong in those categories came from that tradition of JPA scholarships when Malaysia was making a big bet on that. Right. Now, the same philosophy is being applied right now. beyond looking at numbers, what we are hoping is that when we have X amount of people per capita that has an ACTA certification, for instance, or X number of people that has a advanced prompt engineering AI certification, there would be economic changes and economic multipliers satisfying the definition of what we were talking about earlier on in this interview to make themselves value creators.
Right.
Unfortunately, with human development capital training, this is the bet that we have to take. A belief in our people to go for the training and invest in them.
Right. Ibrahim, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Ibrahim Sani, the CEO of Yayasan Peneraju. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our conversation about Malaysia's innovation and digital transformation agenda as set out under Budget 2026 to meaningfully raise productivity and competitiveness. Beyond the rhetoric, what is needed to turn innovation into real productivity gains? Joining me on the show to discuss this further is Mohd Safuan Mohd Zairi, who is the Chief Ecosystem Officer of MRANTI, which stands for Malaysian Research Accelerator and for Technology and Innovation. Safuan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. So we looked at Budget 2026 specifically, and in it, there is a clear focus about driving productivity through innovation and digitalization. I'm wondering how you're reading this focus. Is it a continuation of what's been said before, or does it show any kind of shift in the way Malaysia is approaching the productivity growth challenge?
Okay. Hi, Melisa. Thank you very much for bringing MRANTI onto your show. I believe that, coming back to your question, Budget 2026 came at a very crucial moment. The productivity growth is Malaysia's make or break challenge. Yeah, it is going to determine in terms of whether we stay competitive in the region or we're going to fall behind. And the good news is the Budget 2026 shows that Malaysia is beginning to treat innovation not as a buzzword, but like a true engine for productivity and competitiveness. So again, at MRANTI, our mission is to accelerate technology commercialization, and the Budget 2026 further amplifies the mandate by embedding innovation and digitalization at the heart of Malaysia's productivity drive.
Okay, so when we think about MRANTI's role, and you said that looking towards innovation as being more beyond a buzzword, what are the right levers specifically if we were to focus on boosting productivity growth? Are we thinking about, is it tech adoption? Is it growing upskilling? Or is it regulation? Is it R&D? What do you think, Safuan?
Okay, excellent. But before I answer that question, I do want to highlight that the Budget 2026 that it aligns closely with what was launched recently by the YB Minister of Mostly, which is the RDICE roadmap, which is Research, Development, Innovation, Commercialization and Economy roadmap. This is being produced by our Academy Science Malaysia. And coming back closer to what you asked, it lays out three critical pillars: governance, talent, as well as funding, in order to make innovation a productivity engine. And I think if you look in terms of the levers, so to speak, whether it's technology, R&D, skills, or regulation, there's no one answer. The beauty is that the right answer is all of the above. And they must move together and in unison as well. Yeah. So when we speak about governance, we speak about investment and talent as well. And these are the things that was mentioned under the RDICE roadmap. And I want to spend a bit more time talking about this because governance provides coherence, right? And I think that in order to see whether the roadmap is being supported by the government is to see where does the power lies in terms of who's chairing this. And I can see that, you know, the involvement of the National Science Council as well as the Economic Action Council, both chaired by the Prime Minister, with participation by senior government leaders. So I think this reinforces oversight and importance of innovation to drive productivity. Yeah. So that we want to make sure that R&D is closely tied to national mission and outcomes, yeah, not just inputs. And I think we need to also speak about investment. Yeah. Investment supplies the fuel. And I think, and you can see that whilst it is something that we celebrate that the gross expenditure on R&D has rose by 1% compared to 2022, and business expenditure on R&D has doubled since 2020. But the fact of the matter is, this is nowhere in terms of when we are comparing what other advanced countries are actually doing in order to boost innovation, whether in sense of talent, regulation, and skill. Yeah. And you mentioned also about skill, talent. Yeah. So you look at budget 2026, introduce a lot of AI and cybersecurity training deductions. So this is great. Plus, I think there's 3 billion from HRD Corp in order to boost further trainings in technology as well as new energy sectors. So these are all good news, yeah, for the ecosystem. And I think that one other thing that you also highlighted is about regulatory support. I want to touch a bit more later when we go into a bit when we discuss about Northeast National Technology Innovation Sandbox, or NTIS. So I think that will link up in terms of the investment, the talent bit, as well as the regulation bit on how through the sandbox program, the NTIS, our agency, MRANTI, have supported close to over 200 innovative projects, commercialized 77 R&D products, commercialized, yeah, and this has generated 150 million in terms of commercial value. And not only that, it has contributed to 240 million in terms of export. So I believe these are some of the things we can sort of like unpack.
Can I just jump in here very quickly? So when you say that, so this has been the impact of MRANTI. When we talk about innovation, of course, we often talk about, let's not just be the consumer of innovation, let's be a creator of technology, a creator of IPs, a master builder. That's the dream of every country. But MRANTI's role in this, and you talked about the impact of MRANTI, MRANTI supported projects. Can you give us some examples of how MRANTI comes into this and the impact you have had or seen in terms of productivity gains for the country?
Surely. We've heard that many times before, that we want to be a creator, not just a consumer, right? But I think for Malaysia truly to become a creator, it is when our innovation, our R&D is translated into impact. And not just impact, but deliver. When we talk about impact, MRANTI always have this, we call it ideas to impact. And impact is where you deliver market value, yeah? So you may have great ideas right now, Melisa, but unfortunately that great ideas of yours will not benefit me because it stays in your mind. So I think this is where our role is to bring those ideas into impact, to deliver market value so that it is adopted and the benefit is then fully realized. So that's the critical role of our agency, which is mandated as a National Technology Commercialization Agency. So we are very familiar when we talk about startups as well, you know, not just ideas to impact. Startups, I mean, when we talk about value of that, yeah. So it's the same concept. Before the idea reaches impact, there's this value of that. Similarly, before a startup turns into a unicorn, there's this value of that as well, yeah. So it is the problem is either regulatory becomes too tough, funding runs dry, yeah, or there is no market for their innovative product. So these are some of the things that we are facilitating through what we mentioned earlier about the sandbox program. Yeah, it is not just market, it is not just technology assessment. It is actually bringing players from the ecosystem, which is the public sector, the private sector, academia, as well as civil society as well. Yeah, because then only we can actually deliver true value. Because one of those could be one of those, we call it quadruple helix stakeholder can be the source of the problem statement, while the other can be the one who's actually benefiting from the solution being created. So this is where we bring in terms of those ecosystem, and not only that, we match them. And which brings me to another one of our initiative, which is our match technology commercialization platform. And I know people probably say that, another platform. But I think this is where the platform, imagine when your ideas just now and my problem statement is met on that platform. Yeah. So we have universities, we have corporates, we have government, and we are sharing our problem statement. And the innovators are also sharing their IPs. And this is where the magic of that match technology commercialization comes into play. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. I'm gonna stop there.
Yes, I want to follow up with a question about the statement. Sounds ideal. So it seems like there's a diagnosis of the problem. There seems to be efforts put into addressing some of these the effort towards achieving the objective, the vision. Where do you see the bottlenecks? Where do you see the challenges, the barriers to achieving, the vision of increased productivity growth, of innovation and digital transformation?
Okay, not an easy answer. And I believe, like I mentioned before, there are regulatory hurdles, there are funding hurdles, talent hurdles as well. I think there's not one. There's a couple of areas that we need to focus on. When we say we, I'm using the royal we, i.e. the whole of government, whole of Malaysia needs to be looking at it, right? Starting from in terms of having a coherent as well as a unified policy on innovation, on manufacturing, on human capital development. Those needs to be in line, right? That's one. And again, we do have this fragmented approach still. And this is what MRANTI is trying to tackle. Trying to bring all the stakeholders into the same table and let's battle it out, right? We understand that everybody have their goals, but I think it is a common goal. It's the whole of Malaysia goal that we need to, for the benefit of the country, we need to resolve it. I think sometimes people talk about a mismatch between education output and industry demands. Let's not go there because I think we will spend maybe 2 weeks discussing about it. But I think in terms of just focus on budget 2026, we did mention that the government is giving incentive to really bolster those new technology and innovative areas and skill that we require, like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, right? I think in terms of when we discuss with Mohd will say that we want to create national sovereignty, for technology in critical sector. I think that requires a bit of decoding and unpacking, right? Because there's a lot that we need to do in order to achieve that national security, national sovereignty as well, So this is something that we try to bridge, we try to address through our programs. So whether be it the Sandbox program or our AI Sandbox, our Robotics Development Academy, we're doing a lot of things over at MRANTI Park, by the way. If you're not been there, do come over. 668 acres of land with close to 150 companies, technology companies here. I'm going to stop there.
Right. And we have run out of time. And Safuan, I want to thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Mohd Safuan Mohd Zairi from MRANTI, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.